When I was in high school, I was given an incredible honor. Unbeknownst to me, my guidance counselor at my high school nominated me for an award. It was a trip to Washington, D.C. through what is now called the U.S. Senate Youth Program. I was given the opportunity, get this, to travel for a week to Washington, D.C. as a representative of the state of North Dakota with kids from all the other states across the country. And there we spent a week learning all about how our government works, learning about history, spending time on the floor of Congress. I even got to spend a whole afternoon with the then senator from North Dakota, Byron Dorgan. It was an honor. And here's what I have to say. It changed my life forever. Because all of a sudden what I realized is that those things that I had sort of put up with and sort of slept through in history class, those things I learned about in civics and government and social studies class, all of a sudden, it all came alive. It came alive, and all of a sudden, I realized that I have a part to play. That I am not just simply another number in this country, but I can make a difference. Why do I start with this story? Well, here's what I want you to know. When it comes to high school kids, if we can mobilize them, if we can engage them, we can make a significant difference in their life. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. This week, we've been celebrating Back to School Week by talking about the phases that kids go through, kids and students as they grow up. We've been talking about it because we as adults, we want to know how it is that we can best support kids. But secondly, as people of faith, we want to wonder together, how is it that we pass on the faith to the next generation? Hey, if you're watching today on Facebook, would you do a couple of things for me? Would you check in on Facebook? Would you also share and like this post? If you check in, we have a generous donor who donates $5 for every check-in. And those dollars go to our backpack attack program that's feeding hungry kids right here in Alexandria. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit subscribe. If you hit the little bell, you'll get notifications. And finally, if you're watching at home on Cable Access 181, I want you to wonder, who could you invite to watch with you the Daily Dose next week? Hey, all week we've been celebrating Back to School Week by talking about the phases that kids go through. And way back at the beginning of the week, we talked about how during the preschool years, kids need from us as adults a sure foundation. They need to know that they are safe. And so we wrap up those kids. And when we wrap up those kids, as we do when we celebrate baptism in those blankets, as we put our arms around kids and make sure that they are safe, we give them a sure and certain foundation. As kids move into elementary school, the way that we connect with elementary kids is we engage them. We find out what their passions are, and we engage them. Elementary students love to have fun. They love to know that they have adults' attention, that they matter. As kids grow up and go into middle school, we want to affirm them that they have all these gifts that God has placed in them and that they will forever have a place where they belong, that they'll belong in our families, that they'll belong to God in this big old thing we call the church. But today we're going to talk about high school students, because when you turn the corner and you move to high school, you know your questions change. Questions change. And so I want to talk with you just real quick here today about a couple of questions, that high schoolers, every single high schooler is asking. The first is this: where do I belong? Isn't that the question all of us are asking? But specifically kids, where do I belong as a high schooler, and how can I matter, right? That's why sports are such a big deal to high school students, because they belong to the team. They matter to the team because of the gifts they bring. Of course, that's a double-edged sword, because when you hit the home run, you know clearly what you bring to the team, but when you strike out, you wonder. The second question that I think high school students are asking is this: why should I believe? Why should I believe? Why should I believe you, teacher? Why should I believe what's on the news? Why should I believe you, parent? Why should I believe you, pastor? The stuff you talk about when you talk about God, why should I believe? In high school, students begin to think like philosophers in some ways. Why should I believe? But lastly, I think a question that every high schooler is asking is this: what will I do? What will I do with all that I have learned? What will I do with all that I know, all that I have? And that's why I started with that story about the trip to Washington. Because trips like that engaged me as a kid. They forced me to think about all that I had learned in high school and engaged me in an activity that mobilized me. It made me feel as though I made a difference. It connected the dots in my life. The dots of what I'd learned to the passions that are deep inside me, to the active engagement that I could do for the betterment of the world. You see, if we want to connect with high school students, we mobilize them. We mobilize them. We believe in them that they can make a difference just as they are. We give them jobs to do that are significant, that connect the dots in their life from what they know to what they believe, to the gifts that God has placed in them. We connect their passions. How do we engage high school students? We mobilize them for the betterment of God's kingdom. Folks, I'm so glad today that you joined us for this week, which we've called the Back to School Week. And if you missed any of the episodes, or maybe you have someone significant in your life that has a preschooler or an elementary student or a middle schooler or a high schooler, maybe you'll pick the episode and share it with them. Because we're all in this together, aren't we? We as parents, we as the adults in students' life, we simply want to make sure that we give them every opportunity to succeed, that we support them, but maybe most importantly, as people of faith, that we pass on the faith to the next generation. Folks, thanks for tuning in. Have a great weekend.
I lay me down, I'm not my own. I belong to you alone. Lay me down, lay me down. 1, 2, 3, 4. With this heart, open wide from the depths, from the heights, I will bring a sacrifice. With these hands open wide, hear my song, hear my cry, I will bring a sacrifice. I will bring a sacrifice. Hey! I lay me down, I'm not my own. I belong to you alone. Lay me down, lay me down. Whoa, hand on my heart, this much is true. There's no life apart from you. Lay me down, lay me down, yeah. Letting go of my pride, giving up all my rights. Take this life and let it shine, shine, shine. Take this life and let it shine. Say, I lay me down, I'm not my own. I belong to you alone. Lay me down, lay me down. Oh. It will be my joy to say, shout it, you're